I want to engage in, and we've done this once in a while, we've done a kind of a Bible study format. And so this morning, I want to do a Bible study format and talk about hope. If you have a Bible, great, you'll need it. If you don't, there are some extra copies on the bookshelf there. And turn to the book of Matthew. It's where we will be this morning. But before we get there, a little quiz. This isn't Friday night trivia at the Gaiety Theater, but these are notable opening sentences from famous novels, books. Which ones do you know? It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Pardon me? Tale of Two Cities? Charles Dickens. 5 points for Jeff. And Jeff is a trivia veteran, so he's the one to beat here. Okay, Jefferson. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. I wouldn't know this one. 1984 by George Orwell. I expect lots of responses on this one. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. Thank you very much. What book begins with that sentence? Harry Potter? J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Call me Ishmael. Moby Dick. Whoa. Jeff, you got some competition there. Okay, and this one may be familiar to a number of people. Once there were 4 children whose names were Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy. Yeah, C.S. Lewis. And then Matthew starts his story, his book about Jesus, with these exciting words. This is the genealogy. You know, those words actually, though, even though it doesn't come through necessarily in our English Bibles, are very similar to the opening words of the book of Genesis. In fact, the Greek word that the NIV translates as genealogy is the word Genesis. And the word Genesis means beginnings. And that's the title, actually, in the Greek version of the Old Testament, the Septuagint. That's the title of the first book of the Bible. It's the book of beginnings, Genesis. This is the Genesis of Jesus Christ. So I wonder if Matthew wants us to do a Genesis double take here. I wonder if he is trying to suggest to us, you know the story of the first creation, and now I'm going to tell you a story of a new creation. And this is a creation that takes place in Jesus. And so this is a story Matthew is maybe telling us by starting with these words that seem so boring. This is a story of a new beginning. This is a story of the arrival of Jesus, the Messiah. And this is the story of the kingdom of God coming in his person. This is the genealogy, Matthew says. The genealogy of who? Jesus, the Messiah, son of David, son of Abraham. Oh, 3 names, 4 names actually, packed with meaning. This is a book about Jesus, Jesus, which in its historical, everyday name, it's the name normally used in the account of the Gospels. It's the Greek form of Joshua, if you know your Old Testament stories, Joshua marching around Jericho. The name Jesus means The Lord or Yahweh saves, Jesus. He's Jesus. This is the genealogy of Jesus. He is also Jesus the Messiah, or your Bible may say the Christ, Christos. It's a title that's taken from a Hebrew term meaning anointed. Jesus the Anointed One. And that goes all the way back to David, the anointed king of Israel. And that term Messiah became associated with the promise of God sending an anointed one who would be the light of hope for the people of Israel. So this is the genealogy, Matthew says, of Jesus the Messiah. It doesn't stop there. He's the son of David. That's actually an expression that's used 17 times in Matthew's gospel. More than any other book in the New Testament. Matthew refers to Jesus as the son of David. Who was King David? Well, I just gave you a clue. King David. Who was he? He was the greatest king of Israel, right? He was the conquering warrior in Israel's history. He was the one when they hoped for a Messiah who would come. He would be like David. He would conquer all the enemies. He would establish Israel as a great, powerful nation. That's who we hope for. Jesus the Messiah, the son of David. Okay. But he's also the son of Abraham. David, greatest king of Israel, the Jewish people had ever known up to this point. What about Abraham? When you think of Abraham, what's the promise that God made to Abraham?
You'll be the father of many nations.
And something about that, though, that they would be a blessing to all the nations, right? Genesis 12, 1 through 3, that promised Abraham, through him would be the blessing of all the nations. And so the covenant that God made with Abraham established Israel as a chosen people. But it was also a promise that through Abraham's lineage, so to speak, there would be a blessing to all the nations. And so Matthew is holding a light of hope to the entire world. This is Jesus the Messiah. Yes, he's the son of David, the greatest king of Israel, but he's also the son of Abraham, through whom all the nations of the world would be blessed. There's quite a bit in just that short statement, isn't there? This is the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. And Abraham was the father of Isaac, Isaac the father of Jacob, Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, and we go on and on and on and on. This genealogy. We need to understand, though, genealogies were important in the ancient world, especially for the Jewish people. According to the Old Testament, First Chronicles, the first 9 chapters of First Chronicles, Chronicles gives you a hint at what that book may be about. God's people kept extensive genealogies, served as a record of a family's descendants, also used for practical, legal purposes to establish a person's heritage, their legitimacy, their rights. So genealogies were not just something that were just done for a hobby. It was important stuff. Anybody here, have you traced your family tree? Yeah? How far back can you go?
I don't know.
Pardon me?
I don't know.
No? Okay.
I really don't know.
Okay. Anybody else? 1530. How many generations? Okay, name them. Name them. Start with your father and name them.
We don't know, but
Okay. Russ, did you have your hand? Okay. Okay. So you can name your parents, right? Brian, you can name your parents? Can you name your grandparents? Okay. Your great-grandparents? You forget. Great-grandparents, anybody? Yeah? Who were they?
Christina and Henry.
And your great-great-grandparents? No. Right. Probably true for all of us, unless we have done our family tree and we have the paper in front of us, right? We can only go back, I can go back to my grandparents. I can, if I really sat down and thought about it, I might be able to come up with my grandparents. But after that, it gets pretty fuzzy. And so a lot of us, and I don't know, a lot of us, we're not very knowledgeable of our family heritage, and that's fine. But Matthew shows us here that even if we don't know our own roots, as people of faith, we have a different set of roots. We have roots of faith. And when we become a Christian, when we follow Jesus, we are immediately adopted into a family of faith that has a long and well-documented genealogy. And no matter what our lineage might be, we all now have roots in the Messiah's line. And that unites all of us, despite our different backgrounds, races, our colors, our cultures, our nationality. We're all united in the promises of God. If you turn to verse 17 in Matthew chapter 1, you see Matthew lays out for us how he's structured this genealogy, right? He says, thus there were 14 generations in all from Abraham to David, 14 generations from David to the exile in Babylon, and 14 generations from the exile to the Messiah. So that's kind of how he has organized this genealogy. He actually arranges the genealogy into 6 groups of 7 names. Number 7, kind of a big number in the Bible, right? 7 days God created the heavens and the earth. 7, to be born at the, and 7 is a number of perfection sometimes. And how Matthew does this genealogy. Jesus is born at the beginning of the 7th 7 in the sequence. It's the climax of the whole list. Israel has been waiting for this birth, Matthew is saying, for 2,000 years. Take a look at the genealogy. Warm your hearts and souls by going through the names. I asked someone to read these, but they declined. What names do you recognize in the genealogy? Josiah. What verse is that? Where is Josiah? Verse 11. Josiah. Good. I wonder why that caught your eye there. Okay, any others? Ruth. Isaac, Jacob. Yeah, we're all at the beginning there. There's some names. Pardon me, what was that one? Boaz. Okay. Hezekiah. I always like the name Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel. Okay. Are there some names in this list that you're surprised to see? Tamar. Why are you Uriah's wife? Why are you surprised to see Tamar and Uriah's wife, who would be Bathsheba, right? Sorry.
Jesus' lineage was perfect.
Okay.
I don't want to say anomalous, but
Pure.
there were dark times too.
Yeah. Tamar and Bathsheba, yes, for their reputations, so to speak. But also the other surprising thing is, not just besides Tamar and Bathsheba, but we have 3 other women. We have a total of 5 women listed in this genealogy. Now, usually, and even today, when you think about lineage, it's maybe changing a bit, but we'll say, okay, I'll trace my father's lineage, the Buchanan side, and then maybe my mother's side, right? But we think of our lineage maybe first and foremost as whatever last, the father's side. So we have Tamar, we have Rahab. Do you see her there? We have Ruth, Bathsheba, she's not named, she's Uriah's wife, and Mary. Okay? Don't forget Mary at the end. Women not usually included in Old Testament genealogies. But when women were included, it caught your attention, and there was a reason for that. Why do you think Matthew has included these women in this genealogy?
Because you don't have any kids without women.
Okay. You could also say you don't have any kids without men. Okay. But why just these 5, Russ? Why not all? We don't have Sarah. We don't have Leah or Rachel, or just these 5, right? Are singled out. Yeah, not Tamar, not Mary, maybe not Bathsheba. Yeah, at least 2 of the women may have been, from a Jewish viewpoint, Gentiles. The ethnicity of Tamar, Bathsheba, unclear. Ruth was a Moabite, right? And in Deuteronomy 23, verse 3, the law says that a Moabite was not to be admitted to the congregation to the 10th generation. Yeah, there was some bad feelings there between the Moabites and the people of Israel. Okay. Rahab was a Canaanite. Okay. So he throws in a couple of foreigners or non-Jews. Right? Just maybe to catch our attention that, don't forget, Matthew says, and Matthew will emphasize this in his gospel. Salvation is a possibility for all, everyone. And Jesus, there are no Gentile males in his ancestry, but he has Gentile ancestors in these women. And so he is not only a Messiah for Israel, he is the Messiah for the world. And it goes back to that, and the beginning, he's the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham, that promise to the world. And these women, I think all of them, you could say, had unusual marriages, sexual scandals, suspicions of having illegitimate children. Tamar, Rahab, Bathsheba, Ruth, not doing them in order, Mary. Okay? Maybe Matthew is preparing us or preparing, maybe he's preparing, for Jews that might be a little shocked at the circumstances surrounding Jesus' birth. Maybe he's saying, hey, don't forget your own history. There's things in your own history that weren't so neat and clean. So don't get all riled up about what's going on with Mary and the birth of Jesus. Okay? Maybe, too, these women also represent crucial points in the history of Israel when you have a non-Jew, a Gentile, displaying extraordinary faith, right? Rahab is even listed in the great heroes of faith in Hebrews 11, right? Rahab becomes a hero of faith. She's an example of a woman who displays extraordinary faith in contrast to the Jewish people around them that lacked courage, lacked faith. Tamar's faith in the face of Judah's disloyalty. Rahab versus the faithlessness of the people in the wilderness. Ruth versus the unfaithful people at the time of the judges when everything was just going crazy. Uriah versus David's sinfulness. Maybe that's part of the contrast too. I can't help but imagine that the genuineness and the unlikeliness of this genealogy must have stunned those who first read it. We get caught up in the names and our tongue gets twisted and then a lot of the names we don't recognize and we just kind of, let's go to chapter 2, please. But this genealogy reminds us, tells us, Jesus' ancestors, as Andre was saying, were human beings with all the foibles, yet the potentials of everyday people. And God worked through them to bring about his salvation. And this genealogy defies our expectations, maybe even, about the world, about God. This is not the God that we would expect. If we were to write the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah, we would probably try to make it as stunning, as an impressive lineage as possible. But this is a Savior who works mysteriously in our irregular, mercy-poor family histories. Maybe those of you who've done research on your family history, maybe you've come across some things that have been kept quiet. Maybe you've come across some individuals you just can't find any information about them, and you wonder why does nobody talk about this person? But there's no pattern of righteousness in the lineage of Jesus. So we have adulterers, we have prostitutes, we have heroes, we have foreigners, all found in this genealogy from Abraham to David. We have sinners juxtaposed with righteous people, and all of this says nothing can stand in the path of God's all-embracing love. And so the focus here, as we read through these names, is on the faithfulness of God to bring about his plan of salvation. And yes, it may mean coloring outside the lines at times, but God isn't bothered by coloring outside the lines. And Matthew will unfold his story about Jesus, his life and his ministry. And he will make clear that it was God's overwhelming love for humanity that energized Jesus' faithfulness, that drives him, pushes him. We won't read through the names. Unless there's somebody who would love to do that, we can. No? Okay. Let's go to the end, near the end here, verse 16. The NIV says, Jacob was the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, and Mary was the mother of Jesus, who is called the Messiah. I put the ASV up here because I want to highlight something in the wording, and it doesn't come through as well in the NIV. The ESV says, Jacob, the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born, who is called Christ. So the genealogy has repeatedly emphasized the male fathers a child, right? In the old King James, and Abraham begat, and Isaac begat, right? We've got all these begats. Abraham was the father of, Isaac was the father of. And here, we actually have a very precise statement of the relationship of Jesus Christ to Joseph and Mary. So think about how the genealogy is gone. Abraham was the father of, Jacob was the father, and what do we expect here? And Jacob was the father of Joseph, who was the father of. Doesn't happen, does it? That's what we would expect. That's been the pattern. Here, Jacob, the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born, who is called Christ. So this genealogy says, yes, Joseph is the legal father of Jesus, but Matthew's emphasis really is Mary is the biological parent. Mary is the one of whom Jesus was born. And that's getting us ready for what's going to unfold, the story of the virgin birth. And our attention right at the end here is shifted from Joseph to Mary. This expression, as in the English Standard Version, was born. Again, all up until this, the verb has been active. All the others have been Abraham was the father of. Literally, Abraham fathered Isaac, and emphasizing the human action in giving birth to a child. 40 occurrences. Abraham was the father, was the father, was the father, was the father. Here, Mary, does say, just says, of whom Jesus was born. Mary is the subject. She is acted upon. Mary doesn't give birth. Mary gives birth to Mary, of whom Jesus was born. You see that subtle change of language from an active verb to a passive verb if you're an English grammar type of person. Okay. Matthew specifies it wasn't the sole action of Mary who gave birth. What's this a hint of? Matthew, what are you trying to tell us here? Mary, of whom Jesus was born. Why are you saying that, Matthew? Because I'm going to tell you in just the next breath, I'm going to tell you about an angelic announcement. An angel's announcement of God's action in the conception and the birth of Jesus. And that's where he picks up, verses 18 through 25. So this genealogy has brought us to this point. Where's the hope? I said this was theme of this Sunday for Advent was hope. What hope do you see in this list of names and figures? through all the messiness of history, all the messiness of our past. Things haven't worked out well. Things have gone off track. As we see in the genealogy of Jesus, through times of great faith, times of lack of faith, God continues his work. Through all sorts of unexpected people, surprising people. It's a good reminder to me, God may be working in people that I least expect. God may even be working in me. And that is hope. That is hope. And as we look at our world today, we talk about hope, and sometimes, we can talk about hope and we kind of present it as, let's talk about hope and let's just forget everything that's happening in the world today and let's just be hopeful people. Hope doesn't deny the realities around us. Hope looks at those things straight in the face, just like this genealogy doesn't deny the existence of these messy parts of Israel's history. Looks them straight in the face. But hope says God is at work even now. So this genealogy with its long list of names that my eyes glaze over as I read them. But I look at them and I think, there's God at work. You make any other things that you want to add? Advent hope. The song that is associated with Advent, sometimes we like to run and we want to sing right away, we want to sing Joy to the World, the Lord has come. Now we got to wait. Advent's about waiting. We're not very good people at waiting, are we? See how comfortable that was? We're not very good at waiting. But Advent's about waiting for hope. And so this song that Ben and Laura are going to lead us in to conclude this morning, and then we'll have prayer and benediction, is a perfect song and song that gets us through Advent. We anticipate, we wait, we sing, O come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel.